Welcome to E-Series, where people are equipped to fulfill their prophetic destiny.
Hey everybody, welcome back to E-Series. This is going to be the part 2 to the budgeting. And tonight we're going to get right into using your budget, and depending on how much time we have at the end, I'm going to go over a few things. If we have 5 to 10 minutes, I'll probably start to get into the steps of what to do after you have your budget. And if not, then tune in next week and we will be right back here in the same spot at the same time. Look forward to getting through this with you guys and growing and learning. As always, please like the post, share with your friends, tell everybody about it, say nice things about me and our church, and if you want to include, the underground. I like to include them in my videos always because it's so good. So, budgeting, E-Series, part 2. The first thing I want to deal with tonight is, if you listen to last week's teaching, I told you how hard it can be to start something new and change. So let's kind of dig into just a little overview of budgeting again, and then we'll get down to the nitty gritty. Okay, so what's the first thing that happens to most people, I would say, is denial. And you might say, I don't need any help. I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, etc. But if you get down to the truth of the matter, it's way over 70% of America lives in debt to debt, or paycheck to paycheck, in debt, making their monthly bills. Something catastrophic happens, however, they're going to put it on a credit card or take out a loan or whatever has to happen to get through. So we want to get away from that. And the first step to that, saying, I have a problem. And you need to take a look in the mirror, okay? It doesn't matter how many, think about it, it doesn't matter how many different angles you take, different lighting, okay? I'm not talking about filters on your phone, but if you're just standing in the mirror, changing positions, changing angles, turning on different lights, the mirror does not lie. And if you don't like what you see, only you can change it, okay? It's the same with your budget. It's the same with debt. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to take a look at your spending and your habits and where your money is going at the end of the month and how much you're spending on going out to eat or spending at the gas station, or before the movie theaters were all closed in Midwest City, how much you were spending at the movie theater every weekend. And you have to take an honest look and evaluate yourself with truthfulness. And I think once you do that, you'll say, okay, there's an issue. And I would venture to say 90% of solving the problem is admitting you have a problem to begin with. If we can get past that phase, then I think it's a lot easier to step right in. And we know change is going to be painful, but it's okay. So let's do whatever it takes to start and make a shift now and get ourselves ready. Like I said, the kingdom is counting on us to, or maybe not counting, but God has an expectation for us to be involved with the kingdom. And in order to do that, you need to have your life in order. And a big chunk of that is having your finances in order. Okay? Change is painful. I said that already. Most people won't change until the pain of the current situation is more painful than the pain of changing. Say that again. It's a little bit of a mouthful. Most people won't change until the pain of the current situation is more painful than the pain of changing. What that's saying is, you look at budgeting or whatever it is, and you say, I want to make this change, and you understand as you go into that requires self-sacrifice, and it's difficult. And so most people see that difficulty, and then they just get stuck. And then life hits them in the face, and you have a dental bill or a flat tire, or you get in a car wreck, and then all of a sudden you need money, and then that's when most people say, okay, I guess I need to budget now. Well, let's not do it that way. Let's just face the pain and the struggle, the upfront toughness of this, and get it out of the way. That way we can be ready for anything life or kingdom or children or house throws at us. We'll be fully ready to go. All right. Debt and not having a budget is a lot like a toddler in a dirty diaper. You know it smells bad, but hey, it's warm and it's mine, right? Think about that. It's kind of gross, but that's the truth of the matter. If you choose to keep doing the same things, you're going to continue to get the same results. This can be good or bad. If you're doing everything right, eventually you're going to get what is coming to you in a good way. You're going to get blessing. You're going to get prosperity. You're going to get a promotion. If you're continuing to do the same bad habits over and over again, the law of averages is going to catch up. It said tires blow out or car car problems, or you drop your phone and break your screen, and then what do? All these things, if you're not living a good, healthy financial life, then you're going to run into trouble financially, okay? For the most part, you are what you are financially because of the sum of your decisions leading up to this moment right now. You cannot blame anybody else, all right? I know there's extreme circumstances, and some people have problems that maybe aren't their fault, or they inherited some type of catastrophic debt. But for the vast majority of us, over 99%, we are where we are at because of the decisions we made, and it's led us right up to this point in time. It's no one's fault but our own. Life throws tough times, but if you're diligent in your finances, we can get out of those situations without taking out loans, without going bankrupt, etc. Okay, I know there's outliers. We're not talking about those. You may have heard of this author, John Maxwell. He said this about a budget. It's probably one of the best quotes I've heard about budgeting. A budget is people telling their money where to go instead of wondering where it went. If you start to look back at your finances, you may really say, oh my gosh, how did this happen to me? How did I spend so much money going out to eat? How did I use that much money on gas? What was I doing? You're going to start to say, where did all that money go? Especially if you make decent money and you don't have any left over at the end of the month. Something's not right with that situation. Okay, so we're gonna get right into it. I have a form for you guys. We're gonna post it, I think, on the app. A link for right now to where you can download it. It's off Dave Ramsey's website, so I didn't want to take his content and upload it to our site. But I do have my own version of a budgeting form. It's in Google Sheets, so I'm gonna create something that's like a PDF or something you can print out at home, and we'll actually post that on the church app so that you can get to it. I'm not sure exactly where it'll be. By the next E-Series, or maybe in the next service, I'll talk with Pastor Chris and Zach and those guys and figure out where it's going to be, and I can let you know, or they can let you know where to go to get that. But what we want to do, and Zach, if you don't mind, you can go ahead and pull that budget form up. So the website is, we'll either link it in the comments, or we'll put it on somewhere on the E-Series so you can get to it. But you can download this monthly cash flow plan. And this is essentially a budget. It's called a cash flow plan on Dave Ramsey's website, but that's what it is. It's a budget. So we want to do this every month. It's kind of set up just for a monthly paycheck. So if you have to do it weekly or bi-weekly, you could technically print out 2 of them or 4 of them and do it that way. Or you can just kind of trick the budgeting form and write week 1, week 2. That's what I do. And so, all right, let's get right into it. Okay, so step 1, you're going to essentially just take what you make throughout the month, and for the budgeting purposes, we will have some things later in the budget that I want you to use your gross, but for step 1, I want you to put what your take-home pay is after all your stuff comes out from work. Nothing else, just work. Don't take any bills or anything out, just what your paycheck, what the amount of money that gets deposited into your checking account every month or every 2 weeks. Okay, so that's going to go in A. And then in step 2, you're going to start to take each of those categories that we talked about last week. And the reason I like this form is everything's on there, and there's some blank spaces for you to write in more. Okay, so you can see right here it says step 2. Got food, groceries. You're going to start at the top, work your way down. And then, so B is where you write your budgeted area. And then each subcategory, if you want, you don't have to, but it does make it easier. You can write in how much that subcategory comes to in the total. Okay, step 3, you're going to enter your take-home pay again. At the end of the page, you'll add up all the categories. You'll place that into F. I know I'm talking fast, but it does have these directions on the form, so apologize for that, but you can reread all this information. And then you're going to subtract, and then when you get to G, you should have 0. Okay, you're going to subtract your category totals away from how much you make a month, and it should be 0. The reason why it's 0 is because we're giving every dollar, every penny that we have a month, a specific target to go to. And so maybe at the end of today, if not today, then the next time we meet, we'll talk about how to create a snowball to pay off debt if you have debt. All right, so step 4, when the month ends, you're going to put what you actually spent in that left column. You see there H, the arrow is pointing to it. So the right column is what you planned for, and then the left column is what you actually spent. I don't know that you need to do this on every category, but you should do it on groceries, dining out, entertainment, gas, stuff like that, stuff that you're trying to work out what the best number is, okay? So we can scroll down, you can see this is basically all of those categories. All right, so first and foremost, charity. All right, so tithe, I've taught on this before. I'm not going to get into it tonight, but I suggest very strongly that you take 10% of your gross pay, not your take-home pay. And that may seem like a lot if you haven't been doing that, but I promise you, that's what the Lord intended. I taught on it. I taught through the Old Testament, even into the New Testament. If you do that, the Lord will stretch your money. It is amazing what happens when you really start to pay your tithe and offering the way you're supposed to, and you're diligent to keep your budget. God is going to step in and help you, all right? So you can see your tithe, your charity and offerings. Again, I've taught on this before. You want to get a number from the Lord, and then if you're doing a month, you're going to add up 2 services a week across 4 weeks most month. You're going to have Wednesday and Saturday, so 8 times. So you'll take your monthly and then split that into basically 8. So on your form, you'll write your monthly amount, and then if you give that same amount on Wednesdays and Saturdays, or whatever your split is. Like Wednesday night we give one amount, and Saturday we give double, because that's our Saturday and Sunday payment. We're still paying offering on the Sunday service, even if we're not here. Okay, so then you get into your savings. We're not really putting extra money into savings right now unless you have your debt paid off. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Your rent, housing, utilities. Scroll back up to the top, and we'll go to that second column there. So that's grocery money and going out to eat. Clothing, this is big. If you have children, this really helps. If you're an adult and you live on your own, or it's just you and your spouse, this is a little bit easier category to deal with. But like for me, I have 5 kids, and the Challengers, they had 4 kids, and the Browns, and all the other families I can think of with multiple children, even with 2 kids. This is just a good area. It helps. It's what we call a sinking fund. It's that money's not going to get touched every single month. Maybe it will, but that money is there as it'll start to accumulate, and then when you need to buy clothes for your kids for school, or if you want to get them clothes in the middle of the summer, or swimsuits, then you have money that you've budgeted monthly, but you keep putting it in that envelope, and then all of a sudden you go to use the money and you have a few $100s in there. It's really nice. Makes things a lot easier. I don't use cleaning the laundry. I do my laundry at home, but these you don't have to fill in. Let me say this again. You don't have to fill in something on every single one of these lines. These are just suggestions, okay? So transportation, gas and oil, I don't group those 2 together for myself personally. I just use gas, and then I have another pot of money that I use for oil changes and tires. Tires are so expensive. And also license and taxes is a good one. Okay, so I use both of those. I'm not at a car replacement yet, fund yet for that, but I have a couple friends who are doing that. Basically, when you pay your car off, if you don't have any other debt, you start paying yourself a car payment, and then every couple of years you can sell your car and add the money on top of that, and you can keep going up. Dave Ramsey did that, and he talks about it in his book. And he started with like a $2,000 or $3,000 car, and then at the end of 15 years, he's driving a $60,000 or an $80,000 car, and it's completely paid off. So it does work. All right, and then if you have medical, and this is talking about bills, okay? So not like, I wouldn't put Tylenol and stuff in here. This is more talking about prescriptions that you pay for on a monthly basis. If you go to the chiropractor weekly, you need to list these things out. The dentist, it's every 6 months. So you can take what you would normally spend a year for cleaning and divide that by 12, and then you can budget that monthly, so you're constantly paying a little bit of money towards your dental appointment. Okay, some of these you may have to cut. I don't want you to cut your dentist bill, please don't do that, but you may need to look at some of the other stuff, and gym memberships, vitamins, whatever. We want to get back to using those things, but if you have a big area where you are not able to meet your demands and pay your bills, then we need to cut back in a few areas, okay? And I didn't talk about this on utilities earlier, but you got your phone bill, your internet, cable, etc. Okay? All right, so you can scroll down to the next page. So then just keep on going. So insurance, I have mine bundled, so I have one bill, but I know what it is, so I don't use but one of those personally columns in insurance for myself. Recreation would be, again, like going out to the movie theater or going bowling, and then vacation is another sinking fund. It's like we have a plan to go to Disney World next Christmas, and so that trip would cost, I'm just throwing numbers out here, we're not actually going, my family, but just guessing. It's going to be $3,000, okay? and because we're driving. It would probably be 5 if we were flying. So we know we have 15 months to save $3,000. If you do quick math, $200. So you know you need to budget $200 a month. Okay, or you can go slightly over that and finish early. Debts are exactly what they say: car payments, credit cards, student loans. You need to list everything you have. If you need more room, then fill out another sheet. Okay, and then personal stuff, if you pay for babysitters. I used the toiletries and my groceries, but it's really nice to break these things out at first so you can see. If you're a lady and you get, or I guess if you're a guy, please don't tell me, but if you get your nails pedicured and manicured and hair stuff done, all these categories, all right? So we're going to fill this all the way out. You're going to do it at least one time a month, all right? You fill out all those categories. You can scroll down a little more. You see at the bottom there, that's your take-home pay again. And then the next one is all those categories put together. You probably need a calculator. You put those numbers there, and then it should come out to 0. You may have a surplus. Chances are you don't have a surplus, and that's okay. That's when you need to cut. If you do have a surplus, that's when you take that money from your surplus and you actually start to apply it to your debt. Okay, and I'll get into the specific order of how to pay off your debt a little bit later in the teaching. I was able to get through the form. How long are we at? 15 minutes? We're doing good. So I think I can get through the next few steps pretty easily. So download that form. We'll get the new one posted on the church app so that you can download it monthly. Or if you're like me, I do it digitally now. I can tell you guys in person, or I can show you, but one of them is every dollar. You can use Mint. I think Mint costs a little bit of money. There's a few different budgeting ones. I also have the ability to create a Google app. If you have a Google email address, I have a spreadsheet with spending, and there's a way to track your spending, and it dumps right into your budget for you. So if you'd like to set that up, you just need to contact me at church or figure out a way to get a hold of me, and we'll sit down and put that together. I've done it for a few of the guys at the church, and everybody seems to really like it so far. It's just an easy way you go out to eat, it automatically dates it. You put in what you spent and the category, so food or dining out or gas, whatever it is. Okay, makes it easy. All right, so now we have the budget all figured out. What do we do next? Well, before you do anything with paying off debt or giving into your retirement fund or paying for your kids' college or any of that, the most important step after you have got your budget is creating an emergency fund. If you've ever listened to me teach, or you've listened to any financial coaching or Dave Ramsey or any of those, they talk about the emergency fund. This is to guard you against the what ifs of life. Okay. Hopefully you're paying your tithe and offering. The Lord's rebuking the devourer off your stuff, and you can go months and months and months on end without ever having a problem. But if you do, or when you do have a problem, even if it's not a problem, what if tires come up and you weren't able to budget or something along those lines? This is a pad that keeps you from needing to use a credit card or borrow money, because, as I said last week, we want to stop borrowing money. We want to stop using credit cards to pay bills. We want to stop using credit cards to buy groceries. We need to operate on less than what we bring home from our jobs or from our sources of income. So what do we do with emergency fund? How much is it? Well, if you have money in your surplus column on your budget, like I talked about, then you will start to put that money away into, I would just use a savings account, or you could do cash and put it in a safe at your house, a fire safe or something. It needs to be money that's easily accessible. So you don't want it in a Roth IRA or even a regular IRA. You don't want it in a money market. You don't want to invest this money. It has one purpose. It's not to earn any more money. It's just literally there in case you need it for an emergency. The rule of thumb is $1,000. That's for pretty much the average person. If you live at home with your parents, I would say you can probably drop that to $500. Or if your income's really low, I don't know, $20,000 or something, $500 is probably okay. But you should still, if you hit that goal, just keep working towards 1,000. But your initial goal is 500 if you're in that category, okay? And I just saw a new stat from Dave Ramsey, and he's not the only source, but it's just one. He's got a pretty well laid out plan that works. It's strictly cash only. There's other methodologies, but I like his for. This works for everybody. It may not be the fastest, but it 100% works if you stick to it. He says if your family makes over $70,000 a year, you should really strive to have $2,000 in your emergency fund. Now, in a few months, hopefully all your debt's paid off. Your emergency fund will get bigger, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But from the start, rule of thumb, $1,000. If you make less than 20 or 25 or 15, whatever the number is, or if you think you don't make enough money or you live at home with your parents or you have multiple roommates, then $500 fine. And then if you make over 70 or 75,000, somewhere in there, then you should really save up $2,000. And I think about myself with a few years ago, my daughter broke her arm and it was like $1,400. ER visit, x-rays. So that's most of my emergency fund would have been gone. But I had an emergency fund, so I didn't have to use my credit card. I didn't have to pay out of my checking account and then not make my monthly bills. I was able to handle that blow, okay? And so this is really important. It helps you to stick to your budget. And that's what we want to do. We want to change our habit and stay on course with the budget. So you have your budget, your emergency fund is all done. What's the next phase? Well, now we do what's called debt snowball. Debt snowball is where you line up everything that you owe money on. So if you have a cell phone and you're paying a monthly payment on your phone, if you got a 2-year plan and your phone bill has like a $28 charge on there for a device, that means you are paying monthly on your phone. Now, it is 0% interest, but me personally, I don't care. You should pay that off. Okay, so most people probably are around $700 to $1,000 if you have an iPhone. I'm sure Pixels and those other phones are somewhere in that same range, $600 to $1,000. So you're paying 2 years, there's 0 interest. You might think that's okay, but at the end of the day, $30 a month could be going into your Roth IRA or something else. All right, so we'll use cell phone as example. That's first debt. I owe, let's say I've been paying on it for a year, so I only owe $500 on my phone. Okay, then you have a credit card, it's $1,000. Then you have your student loan, it's $3,500. Then you have your car, that's $6,000. Okay, so the smallest to biggest. Don't worry about the interest rate. If you're a math whiz, like some people that are popping up in my head, you may reorganize this to pay off the highest interest first. That's fine. If you're able to do that and stick to it, by all means, do it that way. Most people, though, they need to see small victories. And so paying off something that's $300, $400, $500, or even maybe you even have a payday loan, it's $100, $200. Pay that off. It's a small victory. You win. It keeps you encouraged. It makes you want to keep going forward with your budgeting, with your paying off this debt. Okay, so what happens after you pay? Let's say I'm paying $30 a month on my phone. I pay my phone off. The next thing I owe on is a credit card. I owe $1,000. The monthly payment's $60. What do I do with the 30 from the phone? I add it on top of my credit card payment. So now I'm paying $90 a month on my credit card. So if I'm paying $90 a month, I owe $1,200. 13, 14 months down the road, credit card's paid off. Now the next thing is a student loan, and it's $50 a month. So I take the 90 from the credit card, add it to the 50. Now I'm paying $140 a month on my student loan, pay my student loan off. I pay $300 a month on my car. The $140 goes on top. Now you're paying $440 on your car. If you're paying $440 on your car that you only owe $6,000 on, it's going to go away really quickly. And magically throughout this process, it seems like to me, stuff always happens in the positive. Maybe up front you have some negatives happen, feels like you need to spend money that you didn't want to spend, but after you really get rolling, you have your emergency fund set up, it's like stuff just money starts coming in. You get bonuses at work, you get tax return back, whatever it is, and you're able to do the snowball, and it feels like it's going to take 40 months, and at the end of it, it only took 28 months because you stayed diligent. And I'm just telling you from personal experience. You may plot it out and say, this is going to take me 40 months at my current rate of pay and the amount of money I have left over every check. It's going to take me 40 months. God, it's just going to take forever. Well, really, at the end of the day, 40 months isn't that long, but you stay diligent and just watch. Stuff will start to peel off. Also, at the same time, you can get rid of stuff you don't need. You can pick up a side business, a side hustle, whatever. You can make artistic stuff or paint shoes or clean windows or wash cars or mow grass, whatever it takes, okay? And also you can get rid of stuff like when Emily and I started this, I think we had 2 cars. I had a truck and the minivan, and then I also had, I think I had a Ford Mustang and a motorcycle at the time. What do I need 4 vehicles for? I mean, I loved my motorcycle, I loved my Mustang, but did I need those? No, I didn't even really need the truck at the time. So I sold my Mustang, I sold the truck, and I sold the bike. I put all that money. I think I paid $1,000 for a car, and I put all the rest of the money that I made, which I owed money on the motorcycle and the truck, but I still made a little bit of money off them. But I took all that money and I put it straight on the debt, and so we had our emergency fund paid for. We were budgeting. I sold a couple extra vehicles and maybe even some stuff around the house that I didn't need. And I was able to pay off a huge chunk. I paid cash for that little car that I got. And all of a sudden we went from being like right on not being able to make it month to month, sticking to the budget and not using credit cards, to, oh, hey, we got a $150 or $200 cushion, whatever it ended up being at the end of that. Okay. So the debt snowball is important, and getting rid of unnecessary stuff and clothes it can be a piece of that. All right. Now, fast forward 28, 30 months, 40 months, you've paid off your debt, you still have your emergency fund. What do I do next? Also, if you don't have debt, I'm not talking about your house. I forgot to mention that earlier. Your house doesn't count in this right now. And so probably most people under 50 that I know still have a house payment. If you don't, awesome. But we're not talking about your house right now. We're just talking about your month-to-month cars and credit cards, student loans, okay? So if you paid off all your debt or you don't have any current debt, the next step to do is to save 3 to 6 months worth of expenses into your emergency fund. So you need to figure out, you can use your budget. How much does my normal month, once you have your debt paid off, how much does my normal stuff cost? My rent. You can use your rent or house payment. Again, I'm not talking about your house as a debt, but your payment, your insurance, your gas, your budget for dining out, your budget for groceries, just the necessities. How much does all that cost? Then you need to take minimum 3 months, but preferably 6 months of that number. So throw out a number, we'll say $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month, one of those two, okay? If it's $1,200 a month, the minimum you need to have in your emergency fund on step 3 is $3,600. If it's $1,500 and it's a month, then it's $4,500. That's the minimum. And then obviously you double that for 6 months. That's how you get really safe. If you get laid off from a job, or they roll out a mandatory vaccine requirement and you do not want to get the vaccine, and your work is saying, well, you can't work here if you don't get it, guess what? You can leave. You have a cash cushion where you can pay all your bills stress-free for 6 months. If you can't find another job in 6 months, then you probably have done something wrong. You already had a job. You have skills, okay? So 6 months is a big, big cushion that can get you through a lot of hard time. When I got out of the military, I took a job, some stuff fell through. I had maybe 3 to 4 months of a cushion saved from the Air Force because I knew I was getting out and I was just being cautious. I wasn't even budgeting that well yet. That got me through some really tough financial areas. Also, you can pick up smaller side jobs to get you through and get you by. So you want to make sure minimum 3 months, but if you can get 6 in there, man, it's a big cushion. Or maybe you don't get laid off or leave your job. Maybe the Lord speaks an idea to you and you want to start a business. Now you have the ability to know, hey, I can pay all my bills and I have 6 months, minimum, at least 6 months to make this thing work. I mean, you could get to the end of that 6 months and maybe the cash flow is not there, but you're seeing the business isn't working and you can probably squeak by. But that's a pretty good amount of time to start to run with an idea. Or, I mean, if God's speaking it, then hopefully after 6 months, you're probably making at least some income to where you can continue to support yourself. But it's just a big cushion, a big pillow to fall back on. All right, very important. So emergency fund, debt's paid off. We have 3 to 6 months saved in there. What do we do next? All right, this next step can go a variety of ways. I'm going to give you the most absolute simple way to do this. If you want more information, we can talk outside of the E-Series. Or maybe we can do another E-Series down the road on investment. But I don't really like to give investment advice because I don't have insurance on my investment advice. So if I gave you advice on a stock to pick and you took it and lost money, then I don't want to get in financial trouble because I gave you a pick and it didn't work out. So I'm just going to give you generalities because that's safe. All right. This stuff works. What I'm about to tell you, I promise you. This is the simplest way to do it. And if you do it this way, you'll pretty much on whatever income, if you start early enough, you'll have at least $1 million when you retire. All right. So similar to your tithe, you're going to look at your gross income. You're going to take 15% and it's going to be put towards retirement. The best way to do this is if you have a match at your work, you start with the match. You don't go past the match. So if it's 5% for ease of math today, then you're going to do 5% in your work-sponsored retirement fund, whether it's 401k or if you're a government, it's TSP. You stop at 5%. That leaves 10%. What do you do with the 10%? That needs to go into a Roth IRA. If you are under the age of 55 and a half, the max you can put in there, I think, is $6,000 a year. So if your 10% is $6,000 or less, you're safe. If you have a little bit of money left over, let's say 5% more goes to Roth, so you still have 5% left, that's when you take it back to your work-sponsored one and you go above the match, okay? So you hit the match first, then you max out your Roth IRA, and then if you have percentage left, that goes back into your work-sponsored. Or you could do a traditional IRA instead of a Roth if you want. But the best tax benefit, most likely for most people, is going to be going back into your work. So 5% to hit the match or whatever your match is. If your match is 10%, then do 10% on your work sponsored, and then the other 5 goes into a Roth IRA. Okay. So on your work sponsored, most likely you're getting pre-tax tax benefits, which means all your earnings will be taxed later. And then on your Roth IRA, you're taxed up front, which means all your earning on your Roth will not be taxed. So you get taxed on one and not taxed on the other, and you're kind of splitting your tax. That way you're not paying some crazy amount of tax when you hit 62 or 57 or whatever year you decide to retire, you start withdrawing money. You don't want to have to pay tax everywhere. Just pay it on your work-sponsored one, and then your Roth will be nice and big and fat and happy, and you've already paid the tax up front. And so it's a lot less, because if you're in my tax bracket, you're at 10 or 12%. And so I'm paying 12% marginal tax rate. Let's say I make $1 million in my Roth. Well, guess what? I don't have to pay capital gains tax on $1 million. I already paid my 12%. So I don't have to pay 28 or 38, whatever the crazy tax rate is on that $1 million. So really good way to do business. You kind of spread out the government's burden that they've put on us, okay? All right, so step 1, emergency fund. Step 2, pay off the debt using the snowball method. Step 3, or you could use avalanche. That's what it's called if you do highest interest first. I recommend snowball, small victories. Step 3, 3 to 6 months emergency fund. Step 4, 15% of your gross income, not take home, gross. It has to be 15% of your gross into your retirement. Match, Roth IRA, then back to the employer. Okay, that's the simplest way. In the Roth IRA, I should hit this before I move on. What do you look for? I will tell you, index funds are hard to beat. It's a computer that watches the top 500 stocks, and it automatically throughout the day reallocates your money, and then it has a target date. So if we're over here in 2021 and you want to retire in 2050, as you move closer to 2050, it starts changing from high yield growth to more conservative bonds and government-backed. I don't know how secure a government-backed bond will be in 2050, but if it's still guaranteed 3%, then you want your money in cash and bonds when you're right about to retire. You don't want high yield growth because this is risk. So it's risky down here, and then as the closer you get to retirement, it's less and less risky. So the index fund does that for you automatically, and it follows the top 500 stocks. Small cap, mid cap, large cap, growth funds, all that. It's incredible. And it's lower cost than a mutual fund, and mutual funds are ran by human beings. They may win a lot. You're just not statistically going to beat the computer, okay? And I think every average of 30 years is like a 8 to 12% return. So if the computer's following that 8 to 12%, it's going to be hard to beat. Okay, and that hopefully you're hitting 12, because then inflation is accounted for and you're still making 10% after inflation. It's really good. All right. Called target index funds. Vanguard is the one I use. You can use whatever you want though. You just pick your year, 2050X or 2060X. Look for Vanguard. There's a couple others. I forget the other names, but because like I said, I use Vanguard. But it's a retirement targeted index fund, and the number on there is the date that you plan to retire or close. They're in 5-year increments. All right. Super simple. Keep it easy. You'll have a nice nest egg when you retire, and then you can thank me then. And since you're not paying tax, you can give me some money. All right. Emergency fund, debt snowball, bigger emergency fund, 15% in your retirement. What's next? Okay, you may think I'm going to sound selfish here because I haven't been giving any money towards my kids' college. Shame on Randy. Well, for one, I would encourage my children personally to make sure college is the right decision. If you're going to be a doctor or a scientist or a mathematician, okay, I got it. If you're not going to go into a college required field, do not waste your money on college. That's what I tell my children. Pick up a trade, learn how to weld, learn how to do HVAC, learn how to do plumbing, learn how to do roofing. Look up America's millionaires. 80% of them first generation, and guess what they do? They don't do white collar stuff. They own blue collar business. All right? They go out and they work. Plumbers, HVAC, roofers, those are the millionaires in America. All right? You have Elon Musk and people like that are tech giants, and that's not the average person. And you know what? Elon Musk had a hilarious quote. He said, I didn't go to Harvard or Stanford, but everybody that works for me did. That's the kind of boss I want to be. Too late for me. I already went to school, but I've encouraged my kids to make the right decision. All right. However, as parents, it is good to leave up some type of inheritance, right? A big one, preferably. So you can use, I think they're called 529s, state-sponsored college retirement. You get basically tuition rate locked in, and you can start to invest and get a yield and a return on your money toward that. Okay. If your child chooses not to go to college, that 529 can be converted into a 401 or a Roth IRA. This is perfect. You can set your children up. If your kid is 18 years old with 10 grand in the stock market already, or even by the time they're 30, they could literally never touch the money again. And if you put it in one of those target retirement growth funds, they'll be a millionaire. It's compound interest. The earlier you start, the better. All right. So you can, if you don't want to look at it as a tuition fund, just look at it as a 401k or a Roth IRA that you're setting up for your children. So that's step 5. If you choose to do that, I encourage you to do that if you have kids. That would be step 5. All the other stuff's taken care of already. Step 6, pay off your house. Okay. So similar to the debt snowball, the extra money you have left over a month, you're putting lots of money in your retirement. Maybe you're helping friends out, start their business, or you're buying property, whatever. Okay. You need to start to take at least a large portion of your excess money after all your tithe and offering and everything else is paid, putting it down on your house. If you can pay even just 2 extra payments a year, I think you can drop your house from a 30-year note to like 21 years just by paying 2 extra principal payments a year. So imagine if you could pay 10 extra principal payments. You could pay your house off in 12 years or 10 years if you want to really boil down to it. Okay. What's step 7? Well, you don't have a house payment. You don't have any car payments. You have your budget all laid out. Everything's going really smooth. Your kids' college funds are all built to the max. I mean, everything is set up. What do? Well, you start building wealth and you give stuff away. I mean, there's nothing more enjoyable to me than buying something for cash and then blessing somebody with it. And that's the goal of this entire budgeting and financial turnaround. Is we want to have a kingdom mentality. We want to be the lender, or not even a lender, but a giver. Okay. And this sets us up to be able to build wealth, have a very healthy retirement fund, have our house paid off, all of our stuff paid off and taken care of, all of our kids have good retirement funds set up, or their tuition could be paid for, or at least a big healthy chunk of their tuition could be paid for. All that stuff set up. What do? It's time to stop being me-centered and be outward with what we've earned and what we've gained. Okay. I'm thinking hopefully I'll be no older than 50 when I'm at this point, but I still have probably 10 to 12 years left at my normal job if I stay that long. And that I could do so much with outreaches and buying food and when we go downtown to do ministry, just being able to cater in food and take more buses out or whatever it is. Keep building it up and giving it away. I want to be able to give away more cars and houses. And that's really the ultimate goal of this thing, is to set us up to where we're similar to the church in Antioch. And if someone has a problem, I'm able to pay off their debt or give them the money they need to make their ends meet. I mean, it's just a good feeling. They don't even have to know who I am. Once you start doing it, man, it's contagious. It feels incredible to give somebody a car or pay off a debt for them, or even just helping people set up their budgets. And so we want to get to that point where we are wealthy and we're continuing to build wealth, and our money's making more money for itself, and then we're able to give away as much as we want, and it has no effect on our own. I mean, it has a positive effect, but it's not going to put you in a bind, and it's just an incredible place to be. And a few Saturdays ago, I preached on Joseph. This is right in line with that. I told you it doesn't matter what your last name is or where you were born in order with your brothers and sisters, or if you're the only child. None of that matters. All that matters is God has called you to some level of prosperity. He's called you to be a prince at some level in your area of responsibility. And we have the ability to take ownership there and be responsible and be disciplined, and then at the end of it reap all the benefits and set up generation after generation for wealth and prosperity. Like I taught about Joseph, he basically set up the Israelites that when they left Egypt, all that stuff they took was out of Joseph's ability. And God gave Pharaoh the dream, but Joseph interpreted it, and then Joseph came up with the plan. And so that's, to me, is very similar to this budgeting process. And this is the first area that I can myself control. Nobody else can step in and tell me my budget doesn't work. No situation can arise and say, sorry, your budget didn't work. If I'm diligent, I stick to my budget, and I have all these plans and steps in a row, then I can handle whatever comes my way. All the various trials, and hopefully not going to prison like Joseph or being lied about by Potiphar's wife, but just metaphorically, those things, all those pits and trials he went through, you can handle it. And so that's it for tonight. I was able to get through everything. So we might be able to do some other type of financial teaching, hopefully in the very near future, like I talked about with investing, or there's one other method that you can do for budgeting. I've talked with a couple people who own their own business. If you don't have a steady cash flow, that's very hard for me to teach on the E-Series. So I was just suggest you finding me at church or contacting me through the church Facebook page, or asking the church to get a hold of me, and then we can get together and I can help you walk through that. It's too difficult to teach without being in person, because we got to write a lot of stuff down. And but you should still do it. You need to budget. Okay. Let me pray for you guys that this would soak in and hopefully be an encouragement to you, that you would grab on and start to move quickly with this process. So, Lord, I thank you right now, Lord, for the instruction that you've given us, Lord, for the resources that you've made available, Lord, for even insight and new ways of doing things, Lord, according to your will and your word, Lord, and even the examples shown in the Old Testament of how to handle money and what to do with investments, Lord. And I just pray right now that everybody listening, Lord, would have the ability to soak this teaching up quickly, Lord, that they would begin to make these steps to radically transform their financial life, Lord. And even as they start and begin to transform this one, maybe it would seem even insignificant, but as they transform it, Lord, other areas in their life would start to come in alignment, Lord. This is an area for some that's one of contention, Lord. And I just pray right now that the budget would be a place of unity, and a place where couples and families could come together in agreement and union, Lord, and you would begin to bless that, Lord. So right now, I just pray, Lord, that people would latch on. They would begin this process tonight, Lord. They would begin it day by day, and just accept the challenges that are going to come up front, Lord. We know that it's not going to last but maybe 30 or 60 days. And then once we're used to it, Lord, this will be like everyday normal life to us, Lord, and we can continue on through the steps that I taught and on into the place where you've truly called us, Lord, where we can be without bondage to debt at all, and where we can give freely to the kingdom and to others, Lord. And I just bless you and thank you for this teaching, Lord. Thank you for the stuff that you've given me to teach, Lord, and I just pray again that it would take hold rapidly in the people tonight, Lord. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again on next week's E-Series.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today to another E-Series episode. Be on the lookout for more episodes soon, and connect with us through searching HLI.Church in your app store, or Harvest Life International Church on Facebook and YouTube.